The only thing I would like to say is that these discussions need much more focus, laser beam focus, as I always say, because if we are not singularly focused, we will confuse the people, and we will not be able to identify the principal problems and be able to design strategies and tactics of solving them. So, why do I say that? I have heard people talk as if there was democracy and the Bill of Rights were respected and the rule of law was there before Ruto or during Kibaki's reign, or that the only problem was Moi. And I think this, we have to be able to correct that misapprehension and misconception. Since the so called independence, since 1963, there are basic things that have not changed and that need to be transformed. And the reason why I say that is the Kenyan state, and I've said this repeatedly, was not intended to empower the African citizen of Kenya. It was not meant for Africans. The Kenyan state was an extractive state that was only set up to extract raw resources, exploit the labor, and dominate the people. And the state was meant to have Africans as mascots representing the international uh, interests of capital. So that when Ruto is there, his purpose and aim is to steal as much as he can, but ultimately to serve the metropole, Washington, London, Berlin, Paris, and these major capitals of the West. That is why when Ruto goes to New York, or he goes to Washington, D.C., or he goes to London, he can walk on the street, almost like an ordinary citizen. But he cannot do that in Kenya. Because in Kenya, his lord is an imperial lord. But in London, where he has lords that are supposed to be giving instructions on what to do in Kenya, he can behave as an ordinary citizen. In Kenya, he has a motorcade the length of River Nile. Whereas in Washington, he carries his own umbrella. You can see the discordance between the behavior that these people exhibit in foreign countries vis-a-vis how they behave in our own country. In our own country, they are slave masters and we are slaves. And in foreign countries, they are ordinary citizens. And this mentality, this structural defect, this structural setup is what has to be changed. That is why a lot of us are saying the problem is with the system. The problem is with the architecture and the structure of the state. The problem is with the institutions that were set up not to serve us, not to accord us dignity, not to preside over a democratic, fair, and just system, but to oppress us for as much as possible so that it is easier now to exploit us and to take the resources away from us. So, what is the solution? I think it is wrong. And I know many people or some people will disagree with me, but I think it is fundamentally wrong to talk about the IBC, to talk about the police, to talk about the judiciary, or any of these systems that were set up to preside over the state that I've just described. The entire system is rotten and cannot be reformed. If you set up an IBC today, Ruto will put his cronies, the likes of Sudi or people like him, so that when any election comes, whether you dissolve parliament or you don't, the people that will be elected will behave worse than the ones that you have currently. So you would have done absolutely nothing, zero. You would have scored at your own goal. If you say we reform the judiciary, so who presides over the reform? Who will appoint that person? It will be Ruto. So who do you think Ruto will appoint? Somebody worse than Koome. So that the system that was supposed to exploit you, that was supposed to repress you, is even more efficient. If you say we reform the police, who will appoint the committee that will preside over the reform? The same Ruto. Ultimately, my point is this. The main problem is a political problem. It is a structural problem. It is an institutional problem. And if we don't overhaul the existing state and structures, then you cannot solve the problem. We will be going round like fools forever. And this is what we have done since 1963. Yes, we have had struggles. And yes, we've had veterans of struggles, and I've been one of them that have been struggling, but we've achieved so little. For instance, we managed to stop Moi from continuing until he died. So he ended up saying, look, I repeal Section 2A and I reintroduce multi-party politics. But then they came around, mutated, and took over the multi-party politics. And they're the ones who have been controlling. So nothing much changed. Yes, the previous constitution, the old one, allowed Moi to detain us anytime he wanted, to torture us at Nyayo torture chambers anytime he wanted, to force as many people into exile as he wanted. And yes, we made sure that a new constitution came into being, which is what we have, the Constitution of Kenya 2010. And people died. Thousands of people died. Thousands of people were tortured. Thousands of people were exiled. Ngugi is still in exile, for example, right? I mean, Chelagat Mutai died a pauper because of it. Bildad Kagia died a pauper because of it. Pinto was murdered. So when we say there has been an ongoing struggle from 1963, we are not joking. Anybody who wants to say that, oh, only Gen Z started struggling, that person will have to be liberated from their colonial mentality. Many, many, many people have suffered to have us now be able to speak and challenge a sitting president the way that we are doing. But it's not been enough. So, what is it we have to do? Because state capture is the norm, is the order of things. Adani will not go. Adani is actually Ruto. The courts will not be able to untangle all these things. This is not the work for judges. This is a political problem, and you're not going to solve it through forming political parties. Because the system, the electoral system, is completely colonized by Ruto and his group and others. The system is not free. So, uh, the same way that Chebukati announced Ruto as president, and whether he won fairly or not is of no consequence. The fact is, the system was rigged from day one. How do we liberate the system? To liberate the system and everything will fall into place, we have to remove Ruto from power. Let's not dance around this issue. The problem is at the top. The problem is at State House. With Ruto out of power, we can transform the system. The system below him will collapse on its own weight once he's removed from power. And the best way to remove Ruto from power, and this is documented, is patented historically since 1789, the French Revolution, is people power. This is how it's been done. This is how the Bangladeshi did it. This is how the Sri Lankans did it. This is how every other society has done it. It cannot be done any other way. I know many will ask, how do we do it if we are not united? You don't need everybody united. That's another illusion. That's another distraction. The Cuban Revolution was not brought by even a half of the population. The Bangladeshi Revolution was not brought by even 2 million people. And how many people are in Bangladesh? You don't need 5% of Kenyans to remove Ruto from power. You just need 1 to 2 million people. That's a very small fraction of Nairobi's population. And really, you don't need anybody else anywhere else except in Nairobi. Ruto can be removed from power from Nairobi. Ruto will not be removed from power from Washington or from New York or from Toronto or from London. Ruto will be removed from power in Nairobi. So we should not dance around some of these things because the formula is well known and the strategy is scientific. That the moment you have a significant number of people protesting on the street, even the police cannot intervene because we have less than 250,000 policemen in Kenya. So if you have 2 million people, the police cannot shoot. Remember, on June 25th this year, Ruto had already fled Nairobi. Ruto was not in Nairobi. He had already run away. He was in Narok, waiting to go to Eldoret and then probably from there, Uganda. So even on the 25th of June, Ruto was ready to leave power. The problem is that we were infiltrated and we had voices through NIS announcing that people should not march to State House, people should go home. These are the things we have to deal with. These are internal contradictions that we must deal with. These are the contradictions that were not there in Bangladesh. The students were being killed on the street, and by the way, more died in Bangladesh than died in Kenya. But they stayed on the street every single day and they liberated their country. And the rest is history. And we can see the transformation of Bangladesh with our own eyes right now in real time. And they were not shouting at their counterparts that were not in Bangladesh. Like the person presiding over the transition was not even in Bangladesh. He's some old retired professor that was living in Paris. The same thing happened in Iran. The Ayatollah was in Paris when the Iranian Revolution took place. It was not in Iran. So a lot of people are ignorant of history and are ignorant about what is happening. Revolutions happen all over the world organically, but in a disciplined, focused, fearless manner. But it has to be consistent. Revolutionaries must identify who their enemy is or enemies are singularly and not be confused and not be distracted. Anybody telling us that we petition, we collect a million signatures to remove Ruto is either working for Ruto or for NIS or from the international intelligence agencies, or is just a fool because you're not going to remove Ruto through petitions. Anybody who tell you that, oh, we just need one member of parliament to bring an impeachment motion is also either fool or working for Ruto or working for the international intelligence agencies. Because Ruto will not be impeached. He owns the members of parliament. He has given them the freedom to loot the illegal CDF as much as they want. So, as far as they are concerned, the person who is giving them millions, hundreds of millions of public money every year to loot, is their boss. They are going to salute at Ruto. They are going to worship him. They are going to kneel before him. They are going to kiss him. They are going to do everything he wants. And that's exactly what they're doing. So if you have any doubt, then look at the speed at which they impeached Gachagua. Gachagua, who was Ruto's running mate just 2 years ago, Gachagua, who apparently spent billions in Ruto's campaign, Gachagua, who campaigned for Ruto in Kikuyu in Mount Kenya and had Ruto, quote unquote, win the election. If they can turn against Gachagua, who the hell are you? You have not given Ruto even one dime. You have not campaigned for him. Who are you? Why should Ruto care about you? And as you can see, he doesn't care about you. Now, a lot of people say, oh, revolutions are violent. Revolutions are uncertain. What is more violent than Ruto? Because I don't understand these people when they make these arguments. Since independence, how many people have been killed who have been so innocent, killed by the state? So let's start with the easiest. Kenyatta killed Pew Pinto. What crime did he commit? What violence did Pinto inflict on Kenya? Who did Pinto steal from? Do you know? Because there is none. So go to Mboya, who had helped him in his strategies even to destroy Jaramogi Oginga Odinga. So why did he kill Mboya? Tom Mboya was a brilliant man, young, vibrant, charismatic, eloquent, a super mobilizer. They killed him. For what? What had he done? How about Dr. Robert Ouko, just recently? Another one. What had he done? How about Odhiambo Mbai, a quintessential gentleman, a super scholar? What did he do? All he did was bring us devolution. He's the one who introduced this devolution idea, not Raila Odinga. Raila Odinga is an appropriator. He appropriates people's intellectual properties and say it is his. The Mumbai brought us the devolution. Did he live to see it or its benefits? No. How about Musando? How about the Gen Zs that Ruto killed and called violent and he called criminals? So if this system and the president's successive ones have been killing Kenyans, killing demonstrators, and armed protesters, what will stop them? The constitution hasn't stopped them. The legal system hasn't stopped them. Court orders hasn't stopped them. Um, the quote unquote democratic, governance hasn't stopped anybody. The West hasn't stopped them. So who will stop them? We are the only ones who can stop them. I speak from experience because I was there, I've been there. I mean, people pretend that they were not there in 2018 when we were protesting and I was abducted from my house and tortured and sedated and dropped dead in Dubai and left for dead, and then forced out and blocked from coming to Kenya for 5 years. And people pretend this did not happen. And people pretend we have not seen anything, we have not suffered, they are the ones suffering now. And people insist that no, only one person should be suffering every day and dying for us. But we should not be risking our lives because somebody should be leading, should be coming to lead us, should be our liberator. I want to remind you that Che Guevara, who probably is the dean of revolutionary politics in the world, said, and I've been saying this, there is no liberator. Nobody is going to liberate you. And nobody must. And nobody should. You must liberate yourself, every one of us. Because if you don't want to liberate yourself, how will the other person liberate you? If you don't want to rest and go onto the street because you are saying Miguna's children are not here, so how will my children being there help you? So say, for example, they are not there, which means they are not suffering under Ruto. So which means whether Ruto goes or not doesn't matter to them. So who is suffering? You are suffering. They are not suffering. And this is the reality. We have to just face the reality. You are suffering. Some of us have sacrificed our lives for you. And some of us continue to agitate, to talk about these things, and to expose them, and to call for change. We could easily forget about everything and continue with our lives. Why haven't we? Because we are committed to an egalitarian, equitable, fair, and just social order. That's why we are doing it. We are doing it because it is the right thing to do. And we are doing it from wherever we are. And we are doing it with whatever ammunition we have. So if you have the pen and that's all you can wield, use it. If you have the eloquence and that's all you can do, use it. If you have bazookas and you can come in large numbers and use them, use them. If you have numbers, which is what we are saying is our best weapon, our numbers, because it's very difficult to defeat a million plus people marching unarmed peacefully. If you attack those people and you kill them, you cannot survive because nobody will let you survive. The world cannot let you survive. Yes, we know the horrors of Palestine, and so far, the Israelis have gotten away with it, but it will not go on forever. I can assure you. Now, Kenya is a bit different. The Americans will not be able to do what they are doing in Palestine in Kenya. They will not protect Ruto because Ruto uh, has no benefit that he gives them that they cannot replicate or they cannot replace. Which means that if Ruto is removed today, they can use somebody else, they hope, as long as there is no revolution. If there is a revolution, the Americans would want to do business with the people that have taken power and try to corrupt them the way they did with Museveni, with other people. But if it is a genuine organic revolution that is grounded on the genuine grievances of the people and are supported by the people and owned by the people, it cannot be sabotaged. They have tried many times to overthrow the government of Burkina Faso. They have failed so far. And that government is working for the people because it's a revolutionary government. They tell us there is no benefits the revolutionaries have brought. We know the benefits Thomas Sankara brought in Burkina Faso before they assassinated him. We know that child mortality rate dropped almost to zero. We know that a dry country became food secure. We know that gender equality became a reality in the 1970s. We are not talking 2000 and something. In the 1970s, we know that corruption was eliminated in 4 years. And we know that there was no repression, that the Burkinabe called themselves the upright men and women of the world, and the world respected them. So, what I'm saying is that at the end of the day, the only challenge we have and we must confront is what are the mechanisms, what are the strategies of organizing ourselves and mobilizing the people so that Ruto can be removed from power this year, not next year, in 2024. The material conditions are ripe. In fact, we want Ruto to go ahead and do exactly what he's doing faster. The removal of Gachagua helps us because he alienates a large population from Mount Kenya that had hoped that he had brought them nirvana. He has just shown them that he doesn't care, that he has no gratefulness, that he doesn't reciprocate, that he betrays. That's good. That's a good recruitment area for us. Disillusionment, anger is good for us. When Ruto fights his own people, when UDA is divided into two, that's excellent for us. We should make sure that we encourage them to fight more because, in fact, if they can kill each other, that would be very good for us because then we don't have to do much. We just have to go and take over because they have already killed each other. So let Ruto and Raila fight with Gachagua, and we should encourage Gachagua not to surrender, to fight them, so that this elite, even if they kill each other, would be good for the Kenyan state. But let us continue relentlessly to organize and mobilize for a bigger day. And hopefully, Mashuja Day could be the beginning or could be it. But boycott, I have a problem with because really, we boycott what? This needs proactive, active action. Talking about IBC, we don't need it. Talking about dissolving parliament, if you dissolve this parliament, Ruto will call fresh elections, only parliamentary elections, and he will have worse people than the current parliament. But the moment Ruto goes, parliament dissolved by itself or on its own weight, all the institutions collapse, the system is gone, and we can build from down up. So I have just one thing that I wanted to say. I know that we are discussing the way forward, and I know that we have discussed this thing before, and I know people think that it's a broken record. But I want to remind everyone, a revolutionary struggle, as I always say, is not a choir. It's not a church choir. It's not a wedding procession. It will not take one day. It will not take 2 weeks. It will not take 1 month. It's a process. It can take years. It has taken decades for the case of Kenya and the case of many other countries. Bangladesh just had their revolution. It doesn't mean that it was a one-day thing. No. Yes, they did it daily for 3 weeks and they succeeded. But they've been trying this for years, for decades. The Sri Lankans the same. One family dominated power for a very long time before they managed to break the cycle. So we cannot give up. And nobody should tell you that talking about the same thing every day is bad. We must talk about it every day. That is the only way we will reach the whole country enough numbers for us to be able to mobilize. Secondly, nobody should tell you don't use Twitter, don't use the or X, don't use the internet, don't use Facebook, don't use WhatsApp, don't use whatever. You have to meet people on the ground. No, we are not living in the 1960s. Remember that in the 1960s, they hardly had radios. They only used pamphlets because that's what they could use to be able to disseminate information. Now, we have something more revolutionary than a radio, than a pamphlet. We have social media. It reaches you unfiltered directly, and you don't pay extra if you have a connection. All you need is a Wi-Fi or data. Let's use it robustly. They should not tell you, no, you can't organize using X. You can. That's what happened during the Arab Spring. That's what happened in Ukraine during when they had the Orange Revolution. That's what happened in Sri Lanka. That's what happened in Bangladesh. That is what happened. That what happened actually in Kenya in June. Let no one tell you that social media is nothing. Let no one tell you that social media organizing and mobilizing means nothing. This is the only way, the only organic way that we can occupy CBD or even State House in one day without warning. And so I'm going to make a call, and it's going to be a fearless, robust call, unequivocal. Let's occupy Nairobi on Mashujaa Day. Let's spread the word. Let's repeat it. Let's make sure everybody hears it. Let's make sure those who are tired of Ruto come onto the street. Let them call us violent. Let them call us anarchists. Let them call us anything. Let them abuse us. Let them threaten us. Let them try to intimidate. But let's just make one call: occupy Nairobi or occupy State House or occupy CBD on Mashujaa Day.